from the second annual Deion Sanders Spring Game Showcase, and it is a big deal. I'm going to tell you everything you need to look out for, whether it be the offense line or the passing attack.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. I want to welcome all you guys to Locked On Buffs. Thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys for diving into this live episode with me. We are talking about the biggest storylines of Colorado Spring Game, which if you didn't know, we are one sleep away, 1 day away from the Spring Game. It's a big deal, and I'm going to tell you everything you guys need to look out for. First of all, I'm going to dive into I guess I could dive over it too, some storylines. Before I dive into everything, though, I know I'm seeing questions about this. Where can we watch a spring game? Spring Game, Pac-12 Networks. If you don't have that, a part of your cable subscription, this isn't a sponsor. This isn't an ad, but I would go check out the free trial for Fubo, Fubo. That's where you watch a lot of the Pac-12 Network stuff. You basically get the free trial and you'll be good. So tune into Fubo. It's an app. Check it out. It's on iPhones. At least I have an iPhone. But storylines. Let's dive into the storylines. For one, the biggest storyline to me is the offensive line and the defense line. Colorado last season was absolutely bullied in the trenches every single game. Every single game there was issues with plays weren't able to develop on offense. Shedeur Sanders had no time. He was running for his life. The rushing attack, they had no lanes to run through. They had no holes to kind of work their way to. It was like the defensive line was constantly in the backfield before plays could develop. On the contrary, Colorado's defense line was getting shoved off the ball. They were getting blown apart. They were getting blown to pieces by more physical offensive lines. And that can't happen. The Big 12 is one of the more physical conferences. I talked about it. I think it was on yesterday's episode. I believe Colorado plays 5 or 6 teams that ranked in the top 40 in rushing offense last season. So there's going to be a lot of teams that want to run the ball down their throats. So look out for the trenches. Now, if you guys didn't know, Colorado won. They lost Dylan Edwards. They lost Savion Wilkerson. They lost Alton Caskell. So there's not very many running backs to choose from. There's not a lot of run plays that are going to happen. The only running backs are Charlie Offerdahl and then one other running back there's only 2 healthy running backs. We'll just put it that way. And so there's probably not going to be the most run plays. So the offensive line is going to be tasked with trying to block a defensive line that knows what is coming. Like they don't know the play per se, but they know they're probably dropping back and throwing this thing. So they have to block against a line that is not second guessing any single play. So the defense basically knows what's coming, even if they don't know the exact play that's being run. Next thing, the DBs, the same thing goes for them. Obviously, this is a big test for Colorado's DBs. You bring in Preston Hodge from Liberty. You bring in DJ McKinney, who Coach Prime has already said has first-round talent, first-round potential. And then you have Travis Hunter. They're probably going to go get another one. They have Travis J as well working at corner. They're probably going to go get more guys in the portal, but the defensive backs, I want to watch out for Preston Hodge. I want to watch out for DJ McKinney. How do they hold up? Shedeur Sanders is obviously one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He will probably tear apart every defense that comes in his way. Is Shedeur Sanders going to have a leg up on them? The defensive backs know that they're going to be throwing the ball. They don't know which routes these guys are running at all times, but they know that they're going to be throwing the ball because there's not that many running backs to choose from. So let's just be realistic. If the defensive backs are kind of winning the reps, we know. If the defense is winning the reps, we know it's because they're sort of dialed in. They have an but they have a built-in advantage because Colorado's probably not going to run the ball that much. Wide receivers, big storyline here because they have LeJontay Wester, they have Jimmy Horn. Are those guys going to kind of complement each other, or are they going to compete with one another? Is Jimmy Horn trying to save his spot from being taken from LeJontay Wester? Is LeJontay Wester trying to take Jimmy's spot? Is a guy like Omarion Miller, who was a star against USC and then disappeared the rest of the season. The new wide receivers coach said he fell in love with him this spring already. Is he going to emerge as that third receiver? Is he going to emerge as a major guy? Does Travis Hunter see a lot of snaps at wide receiver, or do they try to keep him fresh? That's the other thing. And then let's talk about the storylines. And I want you guys to comment below. I see all you guys in the video and the live right now. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's talk about the storyline that all of the people who dislike Coach Prime in Colorado are going to conjure up. One, if the offense struggles at all, you already know there's going to be storylines of oh, this offense line sucks. It didn't work. You can't build through the portal. Guess what? This offense line, work in progress. They've had a few weeks to work together. Having spring ball and fall camp and even summer workouts to kind of mesh and build together will help. Just basing an offense line off of spring ball is not going to sort of be it's not a good gauge of how good this unit is. Defensive backs, or I guess, yeah, the defensive backs, if they get toasted, if they're getting constantly burned, well, one, I don't know how much depth they have at corner. I don't know who they're going to be throwing out there. Realistically, they need more corners. They need more. So don't let public sort of the people that come in just to watch Coach Prime's spring game and kind of are watching it to pick Colorado apart. Keep in mind, there's no running backs right now outside of Charlie and maybe Michael Welch if he's able to go. So there's no running backs. The wide receiver unit is not fully complete yet. They're going to add more to the secondary. The linebackers are far from complete. They're going to add more linebackers. Not everyone's there. So don't get caught up with people saying, oh, this Colorado team is not going to be good because their spring game looked bad. I promise you there's going to be some ugly aspects of the spring game. There always is. Spring games are literally a glorified televised practice. That's all it is. Don't get too caught up in all of the negative noise would be my advice to you. But also maybe get a little excited about some of the youngsters that we see. Maybe a guy like, I don't even know. Maybe a guy like Savell Smalls, for instance. Obviously, he's not young. Maybe he shines at tight end. Maybe Shedeur Sanders kind of plays a couple drives, and then they let Ryan Staub and Walter Taylor duke it out. Be excited to see where this team is in terms of all these positions. So that way you guys aren't like, what the hell? I thought this would be like a crazy game. It's probably not going to be crazy. I'm sure it's going to be entertaining. I'll have all my takeaways tomorrow as well. You guys won't want to miss it. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about looking ahead. What happens after the spring game? Where does Colorado go from there? What does it mean? All that and more. But first, a word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at eBay Motors. And let me tell you about my sponsors over at eBay Motors because they are ones that are extremely helpful. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Appreciate you guys for tuning into this impromptu live. We're talking about looking ahead after the spring game, excuse me. We're going to talk about the portal a bit later. They made a huge addition, and you guys are going to be thrilled. Looking ahead, what does it mean for this Colorado spring game? What does it mean if the offensive line struggles? Well, like I said earlier, take it with a grain of salt. If the offensive line struggles, just know the defense line has that built-in advantage of they know they're going to pass. But if the offensive line knows that, then they know that the defense is going to be giving them their best every single play, their best pass rush moves, their best everything. So if the offensive line holds up, you got to be pretty pleased because it's okay, they know what we're doing and they still weren't able to get past us. What does it mean if the offensive line struggles? Well, there's a little bit of the sort of built-in advantage that I've been talking about, or it means that Coach Prime may not be done adding to the line. What does it mean if the offense isn't clicking on all cylinders yet? Pat Shurmur has a new system. Obviously, they're going to try to use some similar verbiage and similar looks as last season, but things are going to be different. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders making the checks, not the receivers choosing their own routes. It's going to be on the plate of Shedeur Sanders to figure out which plays he wants to run in which situations. It's going to be on Pat Shurmur to call the right plays. Obviously, Coach Prime liked him more than Sean Lewis at the end of the year, but Pat Shurmur struggled with game management. Obviously, there's not going to be much game management elements to the spring game because it's a spring game, but you kind of want to see if there is like a 2-minute warrant or 2-minute drill type thing. Is Pat Shermer calling the right plays? Is he calling plays that helps Colorado move the ball down the field, prevent the clock from running out, whatever it may be? We also may look at certain positions, like say linebacker for one, which we already know this is going to be true. Linebacker, defensive back, whatever it may be. And what does it mean if they struggle? Well, the portal closes for guys to enter, I think on May 1st, I believe is the date, or April 30th or May 1st, April 30th or May 1st. If this linebacker unit struggles tremendously, like if Colorado is slicing and dicing them over the middle of the field with those crossing routes again, if they are running the ball occasionally and absolutely gutting the defensive line and the linebackers, I'd be worried. I'd be like, you know what, Coach Prime, we need to go dive into that portal, bring in some big bodies. Now, I talked about one of the big bodies that they're trying to bring in yesterday, Michigan State transfer, who's a top defense line transfer in the portal. That's a big deal. If they get him, big deal. Look out for Chidozie Nwanku and all the new guys across the defense line, Quincy Wiggins, Anquin Barnes, whoever may be. Look out for them. How important is the spring game? Looking ahead after, say it's Sunday, and we're looking ahead. Realistically, no one is going to be able to watch that spring game and conclude that Colorado is a contender. It's just not going to happen. The full team's not there. They haven't had a full camp of fall. They haven't had there's just so many elements. And so I think a lot of people want to make a big deal out of this spring game. They want it to be like, this is how I'm going to tell if Colorado's good or not. And I promise you that's not it. You're not going to know if Colorado's good until they hit the field week 1. And even then, probably won't know until week 2 when they play Nebraska. North Dakota State is a tough team to open the year against. And it's going to be one of those, it's a Thursday evening game. Thursday evening game against North Dakota State, who's one of the best programs in all of college football. They're the best program in the FCS. If Colorado comes out a little bit slow and North Dakota State has a chip on their shoulder, it wouldn't shock me. We're not going to know Colorado's contenders, but we will know strengths. We will know which position battles are leaning certain ways. So this is kind of a check-in on who's leading the position battles, who's starting at right guard, right tackle, who is the first wide receiver rotation, who is a corner opposite of Travis Hunter, who's the safety with Shiloh Sanders. So let's see. We got a comment. Spring games are just practice. You should go watch a Texas spring game. That was one of it. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Many teams, it's a game in a sense, but it's a scrimmage. It's obviously like the Texas spring game. While Arch Manning was absolutely balling out, some of the guys that he were burning will never see the field. So the spring game is a chance for everyone to see action. There's going to be guys that will probably never play it down, getting action. So I'm telling you, just don't buy too much stock into the spring game is what I'm saying. But look out for position battles. Who's leading? Who comes in first? Who comes in second? Who doesn't come in? What packages do they unlock? They have Savell Smalls at tight end. Does he get a lot of looks? They have a guy like Trevor Woods at linebacker / safety. Where does he play primarily? That's what I'd be looking ahead to if I were you. I think realistically, this spring game is going to be a better gauge than last year's, because last year Coach Prime was like, yeah, a lot of these guys aren't going to be on the team. And he was right. I went to that spring game. A lot of the guys on the roster during the spring game were not on the team 3 days later. Montana Lamonia's Craig, who was the best player of the spring game, literally transferred the next day or 2 days later. There was the whole offensive line that was blocking for Shador gone. There's a lot of corners or defensive backs that played gone. So it's going to be a lot more coherent this time around. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about Colorado's latest portal addition, what he brings to the table, how he changes the dynamic of this running back room, and more. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monopoly Go. I've been told I'm a competitive person. If you think that's true, that's okay. My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly, where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I could charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. And now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You could team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you guys about the Locked On 24/7 feed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free. Welcome back. We're talking about Colorado's new transfer portal addition, Rashad Amos. And this is, I won't say the biggest one, but it's a timely one. I talked about it a little bit earlier, and I talked about it being one of the biggest issues that they're going to have in the spring game. They lost a lot of bodies in the running back room. They have like 2 healthy running backs, 3 at most. And so they went out and landed Ohio State transfer Dallin Hayden, who played in some quality games for the Buckeyes a couple years ago when there was injuries ahead of him. Last year only played in 2 games. He kind of balled out in the one game that he was used, and then they were just like, okay, thank you for everything. You are done. So this is a little bit about Dallin Hayden before we move on to Rashad. Doesn't play a lot, and then all of a sudden this past year against Purdue, 11 carries, 76 yards, 6.9 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And then he had 8 carries the rest of the year. Doesn't make sense, but Dallin Hayden, 5'10", 205. Then, which Dallin Hayden could come in right away and be the starter, but they also go out and get Rashad Amos, who's at 6'2", 634. The dude's a monster. He's a beast in terms of size. He's a big dude. Rushed for 1,075 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5.1 yards per carry on 210 carries this past season. Started his career at South Carolina. Didn't really do much. He had 20 total carries for 106 yards, no touchdowns at South Carolina. Enters the portal and finds a new home at Miami of Ohio. Now he comes into Colorado, and I think he contends for that starting running back spot right away. I think while Coach Prime is really pushing this Charlie Offerdahl hype train, I don't know if Charlie Offerdahl is going to see significant time. I don't know if Michael Welch is going to be able to fend off both of these guys. I'm not going to be surprised if Michael Welch is playing because I do think he's going to get a lot of quality snaps, and I do think they're going to rotate these running backs. But I do think that Rashad Amos, Dallin Hayden, big additions for this running back room. I think this room last year was lacking, or even heading into this year, was lacking size, experience, and just overall depth. If they added another running back, I wouldn't be disappointed. But now they have size. They're both fairly big guys, with Rashad Amos being pretty big at 6'2", 234. And then Dallin Hayden's at 5'11", almost 6 feet, 205 pounds. You're not going to have to worry about them getting beat up as much. You could keep them fresh. You don't have to worry about Dylan Edwards kind of getting too many carries and getting banged up. Obviously, he didn't get banged up last year, but he's a small back. We don't know how things are going to work out this season for him. He obviously wanted a different role. He obviously maybe wanted a little more NIL money, wink, wink, hint, hint. But if you're a Colorado fan and you look at this running back room, I honestly think that these 2 guys coming in make this room better than what it was a week ago. I don't think the coaching staff, I don't think Coach Flea really trusted Stevion Wilkerson. I just don't think they did. I think they didn't rely on him in big situations. They used him in goal line stuff a little bit, but they never relied on him a lot. It was a lot of Anthony Hankerson. It was a lot of Dylan Edwards. And then Alton McCaskill, while I think he'll be good, he's visiting UCLA. I think it was this weekend or sometime this week, excuse me. We didn't see Alton McCaskill healthy. We didn't see him at full strength. He hasn't played a meaningful game since 2021. We don't know if he's healthy. We don't know if he's going to be able to return back to his form. I hope for his sake he does just fine, but you never know with those injuries. He's been out for a couple of years now. So they're bringing in 2 guys that are fresh. They're bringing in 2 guys that are experienced, somewhat proven in the case of Dallin Hayden, and pretty proven in Rashad Amos. He has a chance now to kind of make a splash at the Power 5 level again. And I think this Colorado running back room just got a whole lot better. In terms of the rest of the portal, they need linebackers. I think they could use more bodies across the defensive line, and a corner wouldn't hurt. Adding another corner to add depth would not hurt. You guys comment below what position you think they need to add, because I feel like even though this team is worlds better than last year's team, I still feel like there's some room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. It's in this thing we call life. There's no one's ever a finished product. That's all I got to say. Either way, look out for the Colorado Buffaloes this season. Look out for the Colorado spring game tomorrow. Again, if you guys missed it earlier, I talked about it. There's an app called Fubo. Get your free trial, watch the game, then obviously delete the app or whatever, cancel your membership so that way you can watch it. So that way you don't miss out on the Colorado spring game. I'm sure it'll be a fun event, and we're going to learn a lot, but not too much from the game. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, all that jazz, and I will see you guys with my post spring game recap.